Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Queen's Wish. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're just to join me today as we take care of Galosha over there. That is an interesting name. I'm just going with Galosha because that means rubber boots in Portuguese, and I like the name. It's funny. It's a funny name. So, we're playing on normal difficulty, and normal difficulty hopefully is going to be okay, because veteran difficulty is very difficult. I think we might have gotten past the fight that we were in last episode. Let's see. So this Galosha dude over here is actually pretty powerful. I think we might have gotten past. We're gonna need another blessing here pretty soon. We might have gotten past that battle if we had taken the potions, the battle potions that we have. But I didn't do a good job. But that's why the game is difficult. Is because I don't do a good job. I don't doubt that the game is beatable on the maximum difficulty even, let alone just on veteran. I just it's not beatable by me. It's pretty obvious. Actually, these games they're pretty obvious that they are like they're not unreasonably difficult. They are challenging, very challenging, but like, you are given the tools. Oh, this guy has decided to not do what I thought he was going to do. You are definitely given the tools to achieve the objectives that the game proposes. And that's pretty good, despite, you know, me not being able to achieve those goals. That's pretty good. I mean, it has to do that, because it's a dungeon crawling game. If it doesn't do that, like, what else is it doing? If it's just going to be unreasonably difficult and have enemies cast invisibility and cast charm on you every turn and stuff like that, like Pathfinder Kingmaker does or something like that, where for sure it's also beatable, but in Pathfinder Kingmaker, but you need to be the 1 in 7.5 billion person to beat the game, more or less. We have iron in here. That is nice. We also need a healing wave. Absolutely need that, and I'm gonna go ahead and get a healing as well here for Mario. The difference between Silver's healing and... Is it silver? It is silver, isn't it? Yes, it is. The difference between her healing and everybody else's is sort of phenomenal. But anyway, we beat that battle, and we have emeralds. What I didn't like last episode at all is ooh, poison resist, extra poison rain. That's not too bad. Oh, that is actually pretty good. We can make a comparison now to see how much... Well, actually, we can't. It's very difficult to make a comparison. But let's go with that one. To see how much damage it does. What I didn't like is that the text of the game said the battle was over. And then it wasn't. In fact, it got harder. A lot harder. By far. It got super hard. It is the same exact thing that happened in the other instance, where the game said that the battle was over, but then it wasn't again. Well, we did complete the battle, so... I mean, not the battle. We did complete the, Where is... Oh, that's, probably inaccessible. Look at those logs. That never opens. We did complete the, area. Borlewen. Still staring at me. I killed the mire boars in your forge. You tell Borlewen the tale. Her entire family listens with rapt attention. She says, "We are grateful to you, Havenite. We must give you a reward." Yes. We will make sure to send iron to your Havenite forts. We must show that the Ukatish can be grateful, whatever you think of us. Absolutely. Buy iron. Gimme. You don't have any... What? What do you mean you don't have? That's not how that works. You just buy it, and it disappears. 7 iron in here is pretty good. 40 gold per is kind of a little bit, but it's still pretty good. And considering we're not losing any iron, as far as I know, there really isn't a passage up there, is there? Let's come back in a little bit. I don't want to waste time because of the the 2 days cycle that might that might bring about the new things. So right now we have a current upkeep of 18. Our current earnings are of 19 because of course we got a new. So I will risk it. Let's reload here. I will risk basically the game spending our our money. Not really what's gonna happen though. Hopefully. Oh, look at that! There's a passage up here. Well, I like it. I like it. It's not. It wasn't really necessary, but I found it, and that means that we don't need to come back. So yay for that. Okay, so spending the days, or spending the day would actually be beneficial. So what do we want to do? Well, pretty straightforward. We want to save, and then we want to fast travel to Fort Avon. We go inside. Time is not passed, but that doesn't matter because we need to talk to people. Because, of course, we have some more things to deal with here with Chief Miranda. An envoy of the Ukatish is waiting for you. The swamp folk are easy to recognize. He did his best, but his leather jerkin is stained, and his beard is wild and uncombed. He stares boldly at you as you enter. Chief Miranda looks tired. I don't know what his best is in here, but the implication is that he did his best not to be recognizable, and that doesn't make sense. Unless, of course, he's here as a spy. But it's most likely that he's not here as a spy. Otherwise, this whole thing would have been written differently. So, I don't know what his best is. Unless, there's also the other possibility where the narrator just being super racist and being like, you know how these poor folks are. They can't do they're like, they're too dumb, you know. They can't... He did his best, very condescending there. His best to look presentable is what the implication there is. But anyway, Miranda, who is this vassal? Prince, this is Oren. He comes from Nakala with angry words. Because that's how that works there. They are angry. The soldiers of Haven have returned to our lands. We can tolerate this. Cannot. I sometimes mix the two words. We can. Absolutely, maybe you will. We have missed trade with Haven. Oh wait, this is Oren talking. Right. Okay, so Oren is saying the soldiers have returned to our lands. We can tolerate this. We have missed trade with Haven. We have been poorer since the calamity that drove you away. He probably is one of the slavers then, considering that they also enslaved themselves in the so far. You know, saying enslaved themselves is a little bit of. It's kind of complicated to say that. What I mean to say is that their tribes have bellicose relationships. Which, yeah, they're at war with each other. That might be a better word for that. And he probably is the ones that took advantage of the whole colonialization of Okat. That's how it works usually. So I don't like him on the front of it. I don't like him right away. Let's go with that. However, he says, our people are being insulted. That's what you deserve. We are proud. But well, I don't like you. I knew I didn't like you from that paragraph. We will not tolerate that, I assume. What sort of insults are we talking about here? Just before I cut your head off or something. Swamp feet. You can't. Yeah, that's a bad insult. Why don't they just call you belittling idiots or like? Ooh, I like an absolute walnut. That's what you are. You're an absolute. Now swamp feet. That's just. I don't even like what. That's not even an insult. It's like the superpower thing. So I wish I had swamp feet. My feet are always dry. And then they get like these. It's bad. I don't like dry feet. Anyway, stinkworms. That's probably like yeah. That's another bad insult. Dirty. That's just unimaginative, really. Smelly. That in some languages that might not even be an insult because smelly can mean like for example in Portuguese we have a word called for smelly. Like if you want to use it as an insult. Oh, that's kind of funny. This is funny. This is interesting. So it probably like I could mock him and say that this is just a mistranslation because it isn't. I'm pretty sure it isn't. It actually, and in English it wouldn't be at all. Smelly is an insult. Well, it's not an insult. Smelly is a negatively charged word. It doesn't have to be in the sense that it just literally means something that has a strong smell. in the sense of, the origin of the word, or if you want to be like really pedantic about it, and it doesn't have to be, but it isn't used like that. In Portuguese, though, if you want to say the word smelly, you can't just say the word smelly, because smelly translates as cheiroso, which means the pedantic version of what smelly means. The something that has a strong smell. And you can say that something is cheiroso. It's like the literal translation of smelly, because cheiro is smell. Cheiro, our word for smell, and then oso is the ending, like li. It's an adverb here in this case. It's not an adverb; it's an adjective, but it's like an adverb. But in Portuguese, oso would qualify something as, something that has the smell, basically, and that's how cheiroso comes, and it comes about. And you can say cheiroso. I mean, it's a little bit awkward because it's not a very commonly used word. In general, but I don't think it is very used in English either. But then again, you can say that somebody is very cheiroso if they're like all nice and tidy, and they have their perfume on and all this sort of stuff. If you want to say that something is smelly in English, because with a negative connotation, you have to say that it is badly smelling. The translation would be badly smelling, because we say mal cheiroso. Mal being the word for bad. It comes from the Latin malus. No, is it malus? Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But yeah, so smelly might not even be it. Look at you being all weird about your insults. The implication here, and I'm mocking this whole thing just because the insults are really like, I don't. It's not a good thing that the people who apparently are supposed to be this game in slavery is really weird. So the grievances of the UCAT are that they have as close as systemic oppression as it comes to in this game, apart from the whole colonialization of Haven, which you could consider systemic oppression. But there really are no signs so far, so you can only consider it systemic oppression from a sort of like a principle level. If you look at just colonialization as a whole and being like, well, that's probably bad then, because they're being colonized. But if you look at it from a pragmatical perspective, or in this case, because it's a story, it's from a literary perspective. The colonization of Haven, it doesn't really, there's no real downsides there, in the sense of, like, there's no necessary downsides of it. It's mostly down to the choices of the emperor, or empress in this case, or the queen. It's Queen Shireen, which in and of itself is already a bad take on the whole colonization thing. But specifically, the takes on slavery are bad, just very bad. So we have the Ukat, who are proud. No, not the Ukat. What are they? The Vol, who are proud and don't want to be called slaves. I have gone long and hard about that. I don't need to talk about that again. But that is bad. It's bad. And now these guys over here, who are the ones that actually have a sort of, it's kind of complicated, because they were like, you can't help but feel that this is a similarity to racial slurs in real life, right? I'm not crazy here in saying this. Like, it's sort of an assumption, it's sort of a leap, but I'm not crazy in saying that. Am I? You can see those similarities, can't you? I'm not smart enough to point them out in the text, but people who are smart and know how to do literary critique and stuff like that, they probably would be able to just, no, it's obvious, it's like this or here or there or all that. But it's kind of obvious that that's where the writers were going for, isn't it? It's like, it's the N-word, right? But the problem with the N-word isn't that it's an insult. It's that it's based on the systemic oppression of black people that still go through systemic oppression right now, that have felt and then do still feel the effects of the history of oppression upon their people, and it's a symbol, because of course, insults racism in particular, which is sort of not what we're dealing with here, and that's the problem here. We're really not really dealing with racism here in the game, but it feels like an analogy, and that's the problem. But anyway, going back to real life racism, the problem with real life racism is the context. So just saying a word isn't, I mean, don't say the N-word But if you're, at least if you're not a black person. But still, the, the point is, saying the word isn't racist in the sense of just, it's magic. It's a magic thing. You say the word, well, you're racist. No, it's the system that you're in. But again, I can't. Don't say it. Just, I'm not. No, don't think that I'm arguing here for the freedom of speech of saying the N-word, because that actually is an argument that some people use to defend the freedom of speech of saying the N-word, is that the N-word itself isn't racist, it's the context that it exists. And this context that I'm referring to isn't the context of your conversation. The context is the history of the of a whole people, and the history of a whole colonization system, and the modern day systems that still oppress those people. And so basically using the swamp feet equivalent in real life, the stink worms, using that is just sort of taking advantage and clearly establishing it's sort of an invocation of those systems. And it's not a matter of insulting anybody. Speaking of insulting, there's a line over there. Who is doing this insulting? Which that one does feel as a mistranslation. But it isn't a matter of insulting anybody. It is just a matter of you saying that you agree with those systems. And I can't speak for any black person, and I was gonna say for the black community, they're not a monolith. But what I mean is, I'm a white person living in a country who basically created the transcontinental slavery, chattel slavery, and racialized slavery, and all that sort of stuff. So, anyway, because I'm from Portugal, that's why I talk about Portuguese stuff. And anyway, the point is, I can only speak for my own perspective, and feel free to correct me in the comments if you have a better take, and if I'm wrong. But the point is, it isn't that you're calling them swamp feet. It isn't the insult. It's the freaking standing for those systems that exist and still exist, and that definitely have existed throughout centuries. And you stand beside them. That's why a lot of other systems are considered slurs and are not insults. And even some people don't consider it insults, but they are nonetheless siding with, well, not necessarily siding with, but they're definitely an evocation to the systems that drive to the oppression of certain people. Like, for example, the Romani people have a slur associated with them, and it is a slur in so much as it is, again, the invocation of the result of a system that drove them into being a nomadic, well, historically anyway, nomadic people. And still associating with them, not only is it not only reinforces the stereotype of the Romani people. I say Romani people, I don't know if it's Roma people. I think it is Romani, right? Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know much. Anyway, the point is, using that word that is sometimes used in video games, even like, well, the Romani people, they're also very much victims of racism. It's probably the biggest problem right now here in Europe as of the time of recording. Anyway, at least definitely here in Portugal is the racism against Romani people, and they are definitely called in Portuguese has a different origin. Actually, I don't know the origin of the specific word that we use in Portuguese. Anyway, that we use in Portuguese, I say, but I try not to use, but I have used it, obviously, because we grow up in a society, and we learn things the way we do, and then we need to correct ourselves and need to see our biases. But the point is, saying that those aren't necessarily insults, and it should be pretty obvious to any writer who thinks a little bit about this, that swamp feet and stinkworms, I don't want to read too much into how people see real-life racial epithets. Is it epithets? It is. Yeah, racial... Well, in this case, it would be racial slurs, but still. Anyway, I don't want to, read into anything, but it should be pretty obvious when you think about it. When you think specifically about the N-word, we can just go with that one because it's a good example that everybody knows. And you think about it, and what does it mean? It means nothing. It is not a word that has a meaning, like swamp feet, stinkworms, dirty, smelly, mudheads. They don't mean, that doesn't have a meaning. And it should be pretty obvious to you why that doesn't matter. Why the fact that the N-word doesn't have a meaning, in the sense of, it doesn't have a literal meaning. It should be pretty obvious why that doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter because it's not about the meaning of the word. It's not about where it came from. It's not about it. You could even just it's like um, it's like you could. I'm trying to think of a racial slur that actually in Portuguese. Well, I don't know actually. I should probably look into it. But in Portuguese, just the word black, capital B black in English has a meaning, and lowercase b black has another meaning. In Portuguese, I don't think the meaning for capital B black exists. I think maybe some people are trying to reclaim that it's good, or I suppose it is good. But the thing is, black people have been referred to throughout the centuries in Portuguese by many names, names that have meaning, but the word black itself is used recurrently as an insult. But it's very much like the N word in this, not only because it applies to the same sort of racial discrimination, but also because it doesn't have a meaning of bad. It doesn't mean bad. It's not like stinkworms. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean bad. It just means it's a color of the skin. It's, you know what I mean? But because people use it like that and use it to reinforce a system that exists, then it is bad. So that's why these things are a bad take, because racism doesn't come from the insults. It doesn't require insults. It comes from the freaking systems that uphold the insults in the first place. And then you can use literally any word whatsoever, even nonsensical words, like people use on YouTube comments about, like, if you've ever had the unfortunate chance of coming upon people like that who use paraphrased insults, like paraphrased versions of the N-word or other words. Those are still racial insults. It doesn't matter if you came up with it. It is an upholdal of the systems. It doesn't matter if nobody ever said it at all. If it is meant to communicate that oppression, it is a racial insult. Even if it means nothing. Even if it's just like some letters that are just that you can't even read. It doesn't matter. Because it's not about what it means. It's not about people trying to be offensive to other people. That's another point as well. I'm missing the forest for the trees. Here. It's also not about people trying to be insulting, because that's not what racism is. Racism isn't some sort of like extra violent version of being mean to another person. Although it can be that. Racism is, again, the systems that exist to oppress, and how you uphold them. And if you uphold those systems, you're being racist. That's as simple as it gets. That's just as simple as it gets. And when it comes to these particular people over here, it isn't racism, because they're not being defined as a different race. And race, like, even the notion of race is so culturally based on our own society that, like, you need to create that. You need to either, like, base your video game on our society, where you just sort of like inherent the notion and the definition of race, because our society is a racist society in the sense that, well, it is in the sense that also it is a discriminatory society, but that's beside the point. It is racist in the sense that even the notion of race exists, because race is not a real thing. It's all made up. But so you need to establish in your video game, in your fantasy video game with orcs and whatnot, you need to establish what it means to have race. And I'm talking even with orcs, because when like, if you are gonna put orcs in your game, but you're not gonna treat them as a different race, then even then you can't have just racism come out of nowhere, because they're not a different race. They're just different people. In this game, it's not at all like that, because of course look at the way we treat mirelings. But the thing is, this is a bad analogy to everything in real life when it comes to racism. It doesn't work. And again, I ask you, am I crazy? Am I crazy in thinking that this is what the game is trying to do right now? And coming at it from all the wrong angles? I'm not crazy. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, they're attacking they're insulting their women, and their morals. And our lands are a swamp. We earn our bread. We kill when we must. And what do you want me to do about it? You are the prince. They will listen to you. Say they can't insult us. Beat those who don't obey. Yeah, because that's the other bad take right now. That we can, at the time of recording, there's a lot of examples of this going on. It's that, oh no, as long as they don't insult you, then we don't have racism. Yeah, that's a really bad take. It's a really, really bad take because screw the insults. The problem is, again, the systems. The systems of racialized oppression. You just listen to specifically talking about black activists, specifically talking about the United States here, because it's a good example for anybody who's watching this video right now to follow. Just listen to them talk about this particular subject, and you will see this over and over again. This sort of symbolism is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, obviously. It's good. It's good that governments and hierarchical structures signal that they're on the side of the low and the oppressed. The low. Why did I say that word? Anyway, on the side of the oppressed. But let's not get too far into that, because if they're hierarchical power structure, then they're already not on the side of the oppressed. But let's not get too much into that. It is good that when governments say, "Oh yeah, we should stop racism. Racism is bad." That's good, right? But doing that that's the only ask here. That's the only ask. Doing that as the only ask it's just so bad, in the sense that it lulls people who come off better on the systems that are based on the oppression of those people. It lulls them into thinking that everything is fine, because there's a lot of people who benefit from racism in real life and in this video game as well. If we're gonna say that there's racism in this video game, which I don't know that there is, in a literal sense anyway. But it lulls the people who come up on top into thinking that everything is fine. We fixed racism. There's no more racism, even though just because nobody insults anybody, even though there totally is, because the systems are still there. Miranda gives a little cough. Execution might be a little on the harsh side. However, the Ukatish are very, very proud. Yeah, that is definitely what the victims of racism are. They are proud, but characterizing them as that is and touchy. Yeah, bad takes left and right. Some diplomacy might be useful. You know what? Auron nods. Chief Miranda looks longingly at the undone work on her desk, because, of course, she couldn't care less about any of this. Ukatish need to calm down. It's just insults. Apparently it is. He's not complaining about anything else. Which is a problem, by the way. That is my problem, is that he's not complaining about anything else. He should definitely. In a literal sense from what the game has shown us already, but also if we want to make this a similar what is the word? A simile, maybe, to real life racism. Anyway, I'm too busy to listen to you whining little snowflakes. And remember, they are characterized as snowflakes from the beginning. It takes you forever to be able to understand that they are actually victims of a historical slavery in this case, and probably colonialization from the other states here. But anyway, at least slavery. And so it takes you forever. So the game actively characterizes victims of racism as snowflakes, which is another bad take. In that case, it's just bad. It's not even a take. It's just bad. General Ajax tells his soldiers that aggravating our vassals will not be tolerated. Don't aggravate our vassals. Don't rile the slaves up. They're gonna get some pitchforks. And have General Ajax tell his soldiers that aggravating our vassal will be. It's like, oh my god. We're literally talking about freaking vassals here. It's not even like they don't even try to hide the fact that obviously they're going to be our vassals. It's like, just do the what is the worst option here? What do I have? I like this one, but it's like it's a little bit on the text of the game. It makes a little bit too much sense. So I'm gonna go with this one because I think it might be, even though it's not on the face of it as bad as that. Well, it is also. It is also bad. These are both bad. I'm going to go with this one. I'm too busy to listen to you. And Aura nods, but there's a quiet fury in his eyes. Understood, Prince. I will tell my people to stop whining. We are sure to not be talking about this insult for many years. Wait, we are sure to not be talking about this insult for many years, he says in a sentence that I'm sure means something, but I can't understand what it means. I'm going to let you decide what that sentence means in the end. I don't know what insult he is referring to. I suppose it's my decision, but he said it the opposite way that I would expect him to say. But anyway, that's gonna be that for today. Thank you so much for joining us. For joining me. We're going on a meta level. I always talk about like we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that because it's you and me doing this Let's Play, and now it's that you don't join me, you join us. It's like even more us. But no, thank you so much for joining me. This has been Queen's Wish. Please do comment about this sort of stuff. I like hearing feedback. Specifically in regards to my whole premise of this, because I wouldn't ramble if I didn't get the feeling like it's way too consistent for it not to be, right? For it not to be a sort of an analog for real life racism. I'm not... It has to be, right? It's, games do this, in movies do this. Does anybody see it differently? I mean, that's beside all the other things. If you disagree on me on racism, don't argue with me. Go and listen to people who are actually victims of racism and know a lot more about it than I do. But don't argue with me because I'm just saying, I'm just saying what I learned from other people. It's like, and if you, and I'll say disagree with me on racism here is there's other types of disagreement that you might be able to elucidate me on. But please, yeah, that's also fine. But thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.